Do you believe that there's errors in the Bible at all, like
What
historical
do you mean?
stuff
No,
or
no,
contradictions?
no. I don't believe that the Bible is historically inaccurate. In fact, apart from the Bible, much of ancient history is unknown. The Bible itself is an historical record. Why do you think that when archaeologists go and excavate, they use the Bible as their reference? This is not a lie. When they want to excavate Israel or they want to excavate, let's say, Jerusalem or Nazareth, they use the Bible as one of their sources, if not their chief source, because the Bible mentions historical figures and places. So it becomes a guide for them to start excavating. Had it not been for the Bible, I would sincerely doubt there would be much emphasis in archaeologists going to Israel or the Middle East and start excavating. So the Bible itself is used as one of the primary, if not the primary sources, to try to reconstruct ancient history or to find places to dig and excavate. And that's not a statement of faith. That's a factual statement. In fact, here, I'm going to mention to you a man named Sir William Ramsay. Sir William Ramsay. Okay, now, he was a skeptic. He did not believe in the Bible. He thought the Bible was full of errors. You can even Google his name, Sir William Ramsay. He spent 30 years in Asia Minor as an archaeologist because he wanted to find evidence to falsify the New Testament. And this is not a lie. He wrote, he's on record. He wrote, he converted to Christianity because after spending 30 years in Asia Minor, looking at Luke and Acts, he specifically used the books Luke and Acts. After 30 years, he converted. He said, Luke is one of the greatest historians who ever lived. Whenever archaeology uncovered an inscription, whatever it is, regarding the events reported by Luke and Acts, the author was always spot on. He was always accurate. And he should be considered one of the greatest historians that ever wrote. And he became a Christian. His name is Sir William Ramsay. He was an archaeologist. I'm not exaggerating. So put in Sir William Ramsay, Ramsey. He started as a skeptic. After 3 years, he became a follower of Jesus Christ because he said, this writer is historically accurate. He knew minutiae, details that later generations could not have known if they were living at that time. And he documents it and he details it. And because of the historicity of Luke and Acts, that led him to trust what he said about Jesus and the exploits of the apostles in establishing the church. With the Quran, however, you cannot give me the historical context of the Quran. This is why you need the traditions that come 100 to 200 years after the Quran supposedly was written. Are you aware of this?
Say that again.
The Quran, if you just take the Quran, and you have nothing else. You cannot tell me when the Quran was composed and by whom. It doesn't give you an historical context. This is why you're dependent. You are dependent on traditions that come over 100 years after when the Quran was reportedly composed. For example, if I tell you...
You mean like the hadiths and all that?
Yes, that's what you need. Because if I say, show me in the Quran when the Quran was composed, can you show it to me? Even Uthman can't show it to me. Neither Sneeko, because they can't. It's not in the Quran.
I know. So I get the point you're making with the hadiths, but the Bible is like sparsed out a lot of time too. So
Bible what?
The Bible, the books of the Bible are sparsed out hundreds of years.
But you're comparing apples and pineapples because you're ignorant about the Bible. Who told you the Bible is one book? The Quran is one book, right?
Yeah.
So are you comparing a collection of books with one book? You compare book by book. You're comparing apples and pineapples.
Yeah.
So why is it that one book is so confused and chaotic that you can't make sense out of it? And then you want to then contrast that with over 70 books written over 1,500 years by different men in different time periods. So you're going to compare that and think that's analogous?
No, I got what you're saying.
So my question is, the Quran is more recent, right?
Yeah.
And some of the books of the Bible are very ancient. They're even before the time of Christ, correct?
Yeah.
So of course, we who are coming way after may have some difficulties with some, not all, because oftentimes the Bible gives you enough context to situate itself. But you're talking about ancient books, some of which are even older than when Christ appeared on earth, and yet Christ confirmed those books. So obviously, because we're far removed, we may not understand. But because of archaeology and excavations, every archaeological dig found thus far, and I'll give you a link, it's called Expedition Bible, so you don't think I'm exaggerating. Even archaeologists who are not Christians will tell you there is yet to be found one archaeological inscription that falsifies the Bible history. What they argue from is silence. Well, we don't have any evidence for this person ruling or evidence for this event, but that's an argument from silence. Just because you don't have evidence yet doesn't mean it didn't exist. And why don't you trust the Bible as being that evidence? Because it's also historical record. But why do I have a problem with the Quran understanding its context when it's even younger in time? It's only, what, if we say it was composed in the 7th century, 600 years after Christ, that means it's not as old as the books of the New Testament, not as old as the books of the Old Testament, and yet you still can't make sense out of it. So don't compare a collection of books with one book. Compare book by book. Compare Luke with the Quran. And Luke passes with flying colors, and yet the Quran makes no sense.